here's my March recap of the books I've done and how my progress is going with my 2024 book blanket. I am Caitlin with the Backcountry Crochet, and this is just my kind of monthly accountability video updating myself and anyone who cares to follow on how the progress is going on my book blanket. So I have been catching up on my March books. I know it's the beginning of April, but I am currently working on my 8th and final book from the month of March. Updating my final one. It's pink, so my, what is that, science fiction. So this month I have done, I don't know, quite a variety, I felt I was getting a lot of realistic fiction, and so I kind of branched out trying to get a little bit more variety. Partly motivated, well, very kind of heavily motivated by the colors. I just didn't want the same color of this blue all the way through. And so that's kind of a fun side effect of this book blanket, is I'm more conscious of my genres, and I'm kind of varying the types of books that I'm reading a lot more than I normally do. I didn't realize how much I read in realistic fiction until now, and it's kind of fun branching out, getting some more genres and more variety in what I read and what I listen to with audiobooks. The first book I read was David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. I know I'm a little late to the game on that one, but that was a really good nonfiction. I definitely found with Malcolm Gladwell that I do better with audiobook instead of reading, but it was a really good, engaging nonfiction book. So definitely glad I checked that out. And so I gave it 3 out of 3 stars on my blanket rating. You know, I probably would have given it like a 4 or 4.5, maybe a 4 out of 5. But when I'm looking at my 3 rows, I felt it was worth 3 rows. The next book was I called it low fantasy. It was based off of, gosh, what was it? Jane Eyre, I believe. I've never read those classics, but it was adaptation on Jane Eyre, and it was okay. It was good. It just wasn't my style, not my writing style. I've had a friend who really liked that book, but there was just some parts of the book that just didn't feel realistic. It's not the world building. It's more like someone just randomly showed up so that they could randomly be attacked because they needed to have some type of someone get attacked in the scene, and so it just didn't feel, I don't know, it just felt kind of forced on how some of the planning went, and that kind of annoys me when I read books like that. I think I look too into it that on some of those things, but for me, it was a 1 out of 3 stars. If it wasn't an audiobook, I probably wouldn't have finished it. Just if I'm reading a book, I want a book that's going to keep me engaged and doesn't make me get frustrated or roll my eyes just because it takes longer and it's a bigger part of my life to commit to reading a book just because I'm slower. So, but for an audiobook, good enough to finish. Third book this month was the second in a series I read, science fiction book, Thronebreakers. It was the sequel to Crown Chasers, which I read earlier this year. I love that author. I love that book. It was a duology. Highly recommend to anyone who wants some just a fun, engaging read. It's science fiction. You've got space travel, battles, robots. I'm not selling it very well, but it was really good. And I am excited for any books from this author just because I loved her writing style. So a definite 3 out of 3 stars for my book blanket. Three stripes, I guess you could say, on my ratings. Next book I read was a nonfiction one, Yellowface, which, what a cool commentary. Not cool. There's a lot of, problems going on in the book with racism and, deceit. I know I'm a little late to the game. I found out about this book only recently, but I get why there's all this hype around it. Definitely giving it 3 out of 3 stars. Realistic fiction. Highly recommend that book to anyone looking for a fun, well, like an intriguing, thought-provoking realistic fiction book. The next book I read, I started reading as like reading, and it just did not keep me engaged. It was Where'd You Go, Bernadette? The premise is really, not the premise, the storytelling on how you go through documents and emails and just this compilation of documents to kind of help tell the story. It's a really cool idea, but I just didn't care enough about like the issues going on and the drama that was happening in it, so it didn't really keep me. It was an almost did not finish. I had pushed through so much reading though that I saw it was available at my library for audiobook for a checkout, so I finished it that way, and I think I could have gone without finishing it, even with audiobook, and been just fine. Definitely a 1 out of 3 stars. Good enough to finish. But for me, it just wasn't, I don't know. It's definitely not one I would recommend to other people. It's one I kind of just regret wasting my time on, to be perfectly honest. Just not my cup of tea. I've heard other people say that they really liked it, but again, just not my book. And that happens. I then switched over to another nonfiction, and I did another audiobook. I go through so many audiobooks since starting this project. But the next audiobook was Endurance, the story about Shackleton and his attempt at reaching the South Pole. And it's a really interesting story, but just when I'm thinking about nonfiction text and biographies and, those kind of stories, it didn't hold up against some other ones I've read, so good enough to finish. Kind of had to slog through it. The story itself is crazy, and it's amazing what all of those sailors went through in order to survive, but just the details and stuff kind of got a little too mundane, and I get that's the reality of what they went through, but after a bit I didn't care about what they were eating in their meals. And again, that's the reality, that's a story, that's what they experienced, but there are better biographies out there, especially adventure, human willpower type biographies, that I think I would steer towards more than that one. But still, I am glad that I did it. Not earth-shattering. Getting towards the end, I switched over to realistic fiction. Once again, you can kind of see, I had Where'd You Go, Bernadette, Shackleton, and here I was with everybody in my family's killed someone. And this was a kind of mystery novel by an Australian author, and it was so good. It's like the mystery kept me intrigued, be like, what on earth is going on? But the writing style was really fun, and how the narrator, the main character and the narrator, he was abiding by like the classic rules of mystery writing. Like, I can't remember the 5 rules of mystery writing. I have to look it up to see how many. And he kept kind of going back to them and saying, I promise I'm a trustworthy narrator. And it was nice to go back to a classic feel of like Agatha Christie style feel of mystery versus, I don't know, a lot of the modern mystery books are very Gone Girl twists that like the reader could never see coming, and it wasn't necessarily laid out that you could guess for yourself. But it was fun to go back to a very classic mystery, and it was just, again, I keep saying it, I'm a broken record, but it was just a fun listen. I am definitely going to look at his next book. I don't know if it's in a series, but it seems from the title to be about a mystery or a murder on a train. And, when I'm ready for another good classic mystery, I'm definitely going to go to that author. So that was a 3 out of 3 stripes on my blanket. Now, the last book I am crocheting actually right now is a science fiction called The Final Six. It's about kind of this futuristic setting, global warming, and climate change has really kind of destroyed our Earth. And so all the countries band together in order to send teenagers, the final six, to one of Jupiter's moons in order to start like a colony out there to preserve the future of humanity. And so this book goes into the tests and the trials and the training to kind of narrow it down from 24 teenagers from around the world to the final six that are going to go. And there's kind of this conspiracy of what's going on, and is NASA and all the other space programs, are they keeping secrets from the population? It's just kind of this fun mystery. What are our characters missing? What is not being told to them? What deceit is happening by the man? And it was good. I'm giving it 3 out of 3 stripes. I'm definitely gonna check out the sequel. I don't know how many books are in this series, if it's a duology, a trilogy, or what, but I know at least there's a second one. I want to say there's a third as well, but it's definitely one I'm gonna come back to just because it was a fun science fiction. And I feel like I don't give enough credit to science fiction, and it's only been lately that I've been looking into science fiction because, I wanted more variety of colors. And I've been very surprised with how good the young adult science fiction is. I've never really given it enough credit or enough thought when I'm thinking about books, but it's definitely the books I've dabbled into have been really good. Some just general updates and findings with this last month that I'm realizing with this project is still glad I did it. I have no regrets on doing it. I'm still frustrated with my color choices. Colors that would be together a lot, like audiobook and reading level. I chose 2 dark similar colors. You can barely see it. The navy blue is for adult. The black is for audiobook, and trying to find my young adult. Wow, it's been a bit since I've read young adult. If you look way down here, you can see my young adult stripe. All of those colors look very, the adult and audiobook, navy blue and black, look so similar that they don't really have much distinction or contrast when you put them together. And my young adult and my rating stripes look very similar as well. I think I should have varied those into different genres instead and had more bright contrast on colors that would be together. I also found this weird development that even though these are all Premier Basics worsted weight yarn, some of them are they're not the same size. I don't think you could see it, but I definitely can tell while using it. The black just feels much thinner when I'm crocheting with it versus a couple of my color ones. Like this was my realistic fiction. My science fiction feels thicker, but the black, and there's one more that they just feel much, much thinner. And so it's weird because same brand, same style, just different colors, same weight and everything. I had to triple check thinking, did I order hey puppy, 3 weight versus 4 weight for the yarn, but they're all 4 worsted weight. So that's odd. This is kind of one of my first projects where I have been ordering, and I know they you've got to get from the same brand because different brands, even if they're all supposedly the same weight, might feel different. But this is the same brand, same style, or same line of yarn, and it's weird. I mean, for this project, not a big deal. I could see maybe some other projects it being a little more problematic. But yeah, here's my progress so far. I'm making some good progress. I think I've read 18 books throughout this year that are on my blanket. maybe 17 or 18 completed, finishing up the last one for March. And yeah, that's just kind of my progress so far, enjoying it, and glad I'm doing it. I'm curious to see how I feel throughout the rest of this year, because this is only month 3. Not sure how big this is going to get. Might have needed to rethink the dimensions or the weight, or else I'm going to have a really long blanket, but it's kind of the fun. Don't know what the end product's going to be. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye.